I'm kind of in a lull right now. It's like post-trials and you're just kind of like, what am I doing? But I'm just going through this right now. You got to keep going and you ride this and eventually I'll be on to my next thing and you just keep going.
What did she say?
He's like, yep, that's pretty much how it goes.
Get it out there.
Yeah, but like old Tori would have been a mess and like calling her crying and like, she used to fly out here and like, whatever. But now I feel like I just recognize that's just life. It doesn't need to be perfect. Things don't need to be perfect in the moment to have a good outcome.
Welcome to For the Long Run, the podcast exploring the why behind what keeps runners running long, strong, and motivated. I'm your host, Jonathan Levitt. Through personal and professional connections in the running world, I have the privilege of getting to know some amazing athletes. I've always been fascinated by the psychological aspect of running, and this podcast is aimed at exploring this and much more. I hope you enjoy. This episode is brought to you by SuperCoffee, the healthy, delicious alternative to sugary coffee drinks. SuperCoffee was recently named the fastest growing food and beverage brand in America by Inc. magazine, and after tasting a bunch of their flavors, I can see why. Their coffees contain zero sugar and many of them contain 10 grams of plant-based protein. They're growing in popularity in the running community, and I'm excited to share a special discount with you. They offer a 60-day money-back guarantee, meaning if you don't love it, you get your money back, no questions asked. Grab 15% online with the code FTLR, or look for them nationwide in 25,000 stores like Target, Whole Foods, Walmart, Kroger, and CVS. Cheers. Have you guys heard of Beam? I have been absolutely loving their products lately. Beam is a CBD company that's making waves in the running world by offering products that combine THC-free CBD with other high-quality ingredients. It was founded by two ex-professional athletes with the idea that everyone should have the chance to experience what better feels like. Whether you're sore or stressed, Beam is key for recovery and self-care. Try it for yourself with 15% off using the code FTLR from beamtlc.com. I recommend Beam Dream Powder or the Focus Capsules. Welcome back. We are here in Boulder with Tori Gerlach, joining me for another live podcast. Tori, thanks so much for taking some time to chat.
You're welcome. I'm excited to be here.
Of course. So first question is always a tough one. Who is Tori?
Tori is from Pennsylvania. She's a runner. She's a dog mom. Yeah, that's pretty much it. Yeah.
Cool. So this is a running podcast. We'll start with the running part, but actually we're going to start with the dog part. What kind of dog?
She's a half German Shepherd, half American Foxhound, and her name is Stella.
Does Stella like to run?
Oh, yeah. Big
Nice.
Runner, yeah.
That's
and she'll be 2 at the end of the month. So,
Very cool.
Yeah.
Okay, so back to running.
Yeah.
Given this is for the long run of humans and not dogs, do you remember your first run?
Yeah, actually I do. I think it was my first official day of high school cross-country practice. And we were supposed to run, it's called Lake Galena. It's like a 6-mile loop, and our coach just told us to like go run. I hadn't run a step before that. And I ended up like being last, like the sun was setting. My mom was like waiting for me at the end. Everyone was just like clapping me in. But I loved it. I thought it was like super social, and I was just walking with my friends and having a good time. It's funny because now like that's probably my favorite running spot ever. And when I go back home, I always run there. So it's kind of cool to see like how long it took me to run that loop, when I was 15 and now when I'm
doing it 4 times fast.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
So what did the journey look like from those loops to fast loops around tracks?
Yeah, it was just a gradual progression. Like I just got better every single year. I started out loving cross country, like that was my favorite. And then I kind of eventually, like I really started loving track and like running 400s and 800s, just running fast. Yeah, the progression was just very gradual and just got better almost every season, pretty much. And so fell more and more in love with it as it went on, for sure.
And at what point did you realize that you're pretty good at this and it's going to be something you do quite a lot of?
Yeah, probably my sophomore year of high school in outdoor track.
What was the realization?
It was actually funny because it was in a 400. It was in a 4x4. And I was not fast or quick at all, naturally. And they put me as the anchor, and I ended up, for the win, beating this other really good 400 runner in our league. And I was like, oh, wow, like, it's a pretty good girl that I just beat. And I was super excited. And it wasn't even an event that I, took seriously. I was just, doing it for the team. I realized I just love that competitive part of it. And it could be a team sport.
So that was high school?
Yeah.
And what did the process look like between sophomore year of high school and running collegiately?
Yeah, so then it just became focused on, winning state titles, well, getting to state and then winning state titles. It was kind of actually a surprise that I won a state title my junior year because I was 10th the year before. And then from there, it was just kind of like, that just had to be the goal.
Yeah.
And then it kind of naturally just happened where, I was like, okay, I can do this in college. And so, yeah, it just kind of naturally happened pretty gradually.
Cool. So fast forward to college, and at what point did the prospect of running post-collegiately cross your mind?
Yeah, I think it was my sophomore year. There was an older girl on the team who had graduated and was running professionally, but still training, in the area. And I remember her asking me, have you ever thought about running professionally? And I'm like, it's even a thing. Like, what does that mean? Like, how do you even do? Like, I knew she was doing it, but I just didn't really know like how you even do that, like what that entails, like. And so I think from there, it was kind of just really talking to the older people around, and also my other teammates.
Older being 23-year-olds.
Yeah, exactly. Older. Yeah, they're 21. Thinking they have it all figured out. Definitely not.
So they're definitely older.
Yeah. And then also just having other teammates that were kind of going through a similar process and trying to go pro. So yeah, just kind of following around my team and friends and seeing what they were up to.
And what year was that?
So that was my sophomore year of college. And then my junior and senior year was kind of when, obviously there's conversations with your coaches about it because there's other people on the team that were going through the similar process. So it's kind of nice having, a little group, trying to do it. So yeah, that was started sophomore year, I guess.
So a few years ago now, and you're still doing it.
Yeah.
Why do you think you're still doing it?
I just feel like I have a lot of unfinished business, as they say. And
what does that mean?
Yeah, well, I don't think I've reached my full potential. I just feel like I have a lot left in me. I feel very young. I mean, I'm 27. I feel like that's technically old in our sport, I guess. I feel like I'm 20. I feel like I'm just...
I'm 30 and I feel like I'm 20.
I know, right. I know. I feel like I just graduated. I'm everyone slow down. No, but I just feel like there's a lot of unfinished business, a lot of goals. I feel like I've had a little bit of a rocky road from... college to now, and I just feel like I'm finally figuring it out, and so I just want to see where I can take it and how far I can go.
So I like asking people about their future goals, and when I started asking this question, I was asking, fast forward 5 to 10 years, what are you really proud of? And the first time I asked this was with one of the Bowerman women, and her answer was basically, I just want to get better. I want to see what better means. And so I was like, that's an interesting answer. I expected you to say make the Olympic team.
Yeah.
And so it was less of a tangible, I want to achieve this, and more of I want to see the process and I want to be a part of the process. And I was like, I wonder if this is common. So I kept asking the question, and people kept saying, people who are subjectively and I guess objectively successful generally answered in the same way. And so it's been really interesting to flag that and notice that this is common.
Oh yeah, I think that's probably the exact same thing I would say. I think when I was younger, in college or coming out of college, there were goals like that, win an NCAA title, be an All-American, and then make the trials or make the Olympics. But now I think as I get older, it's definitely more about enjoying the process and seeing how far you can take this physically, but also enjoying the journey along the way. And pretty much everyone in my life I've met through running. And so yeah, just being a good person overall, and just I feel like as the older I get, the less it becomes about these specific goals.
Yeah.
And that's what it would mean to succeed. But I think it's definitely more about who I am as a human, on and off the track.
What do you think sophomore year of high school Tori would think about that answer?
She'd be then why are you running? Yeah, because it's so funny. I feel like a completely different person from high school Tori for sure. But I feel like my younger self, was so focused on those specific goals, and it was absolutely devastating when those things would not happen. And it's definitely still devastating now, but at the end of the day, I still have devastating results, I guess, with running, and there's good days and bad days, but at the end of the day, I know that I have great people around me, I have a great life, and I'm not just, a runner.
So the not just a runner part is interesting. So yesterday I had Megan Roche on the podcast, who's a coach and an elite athlete and elite scientist and all these fun things. And she has her own podcast with her husband David, who she co-coaches with. And on an episode of their podcast, they talked about identity and like being a runner versus somebody who runs. And I found this to be fascinating. We talked about it on our episode, and she was like, well, what happens when you're not running? What happens when you're injured? Are you still Tori the runner? Or are you Tori the person who runs? And I think this sort of demarcation is fascinating too. Like I've gone through periods where like I was so like overly obsessed with running, and then I would get injured. It's like, is it chicken or like did it happen because of that? And then it's like, well, what do I do when I'm not running? Like this is my career, it's my this, my that. I'm running a podcast. So talking about your relationship with running within that lens.
Yeah, I've definitely been through that for sure. My first injury came when I was a senior at Penn State, my outdoor season. I was supposed to graduate in 2016, and I actually ended up missing the trials because I was hurt. And that was my first injury in my whole career. And I think I really dealt with that of like, I saw myself as just the runner, like I didn't really separate myself from that. I never had to because I was just, running cross country, indoor, outdoor for, 4 years straight. You're not really slowing down to think about it. But then when it was taken away from me, it was like, oh, what? Like, what do I do now? Who am I? And so I think I'm still figuring that out. But yeah, that's definitely been the process, from when I was 21 to now, just figuring out, what I am. But I think I'm still figuring that out. But
is it an active pursuit that you're figuring it out, or it's sort of like every so often you reflect?
No, I think it's pretty active, because I was hurt all of 2019. I think that was a huge year of, okay, like now I'm really not running for like a long period of time. Like, who am I? And like through therapy, that helps a lot, like figuring that out. But yeah, I've kind of made it a goal of mine to like, whether I'm running really well or not running well or injured or not injured, I'm just kind of always at this constant state of like, just good. And that it doesn't, my life isn't over if I can't go for a run or like, miss a workout, or it's okay if there's a little thing here or there, or it's like part of it. But I kind of agree with that, where I feel like when I have running at like at this chokehold is when things start to kind of like, fall apart. Like things start to hurt, or mentally I'm not feeling good, or workouts start to fall apart. I kind of try to find this like constant flow state of just like everything has to be chill,
So how do you get there?
Oof, I'm still figuring that out.
Or how are you working to get there?
Yeah, I've been seeing the same sports psychologist for the last 5 years, and I feel like we work on a lot of things in my normal life that come into, being an athlete. And I think that's really helpful, whether it's just like he gives me homework to do within my daily life. But that's been a huge game changer with just how I approach like running in my normal life and kind of having them come together.
Would you be able to share what some of that homework is?
Yeah, this is a silly one, but I used to care a lot about what people thought of me. So, when I would be running in a race and I'd not do well and come in last, and I'd always be like, oh, what are people thinking? I feel like I'm being stared at, like what's going on? How we kind of overcame some of that in normal life is, this is so silly. So I would always feel very uncomfortable wearing like spandex and like what I wear to run like into a grocery store. Right. I feel like people are looking at me and whatever. So one of my...
You frequently wear
just
buns into grocery
No, not buns, like just spandex shorts.
Oh,
like, where like you're like, I should put on, like, I don't know, wearing like spandex shorts and like a tank top or something. I just feel kind of like overly exposed. So one of my homework things was to just like, after a run, like walk to a grocery store and go grocery shopping and like not care what people thought. And so it's a little bit of like exposure therapy of like
desensitizing.
Yeah, but yes, exactly. And that, like how that kind of translates to, the track, I guess. But that's just one thing that popped in my head because that was really hard for me.
What's interesting is I have a similar story, but the context of it is like nobody cares.
Yeah.
And it's just running. And so my story is, I ran rim to rim in the Grand Canyon, and I was really hungry afterwards, as you can imagine. It would be after running for 13 hours. So I get on the bus, and I'm eating. I open up a picky bar. And the reason I say picky bar every time I tell the story is because anyone who's eaten a picky bar knows how crinkly those wrappers are. And it makes so much noise. So the bus driver turns around and says, no eating on the bus. And I said, I'm sorry, ma'am. Like, I just ran rim to rim. Like, it's 45 miles. I'm a little hungry here. She's like, I don't care. No eating on the bus. So here I am, having done the most impressive athletic feet of my entire life
Right.
to that point, and this woman says, "I don't care," and it's just like the perfect epitome of like, it's just running.
Yeah, no one cares about you. No one cares. Yeah.
And so anytime I started to take myself too seriously with anything, I just remember this angry woman on the bus. Nobody cares.
I actually love that. That's a good one. You're like, wow, I just did this great thing. Why don't you care?
Like something I trained for like a year to accomplish.
Impressive, yes.
And it was like twice as long as anything else I've ever done.
Yeah.
I don't care.
I love that. That's perfect.
It was a nice reality check. And I had to remind myself of that. So 2019, you didn't do a lot of running. What was that like for you?
That was probably one of the hardest years of my life. I had actually just moved to Charlottesville, Virginia. I have this new coach, this new team. I was there for probably 2 weeks, and then I had a stress reaction in my foot. And it was my first bone injury ever. So it was definitely like new territory, like that was devastating.
Yeah.
And then, it was fine because it was the fall, you have time, and then I think I came back a little too soon, and then in the winter I had a stress reaction in my tibia, and then that took a few months, and then I had a US champ qualifying time for the steeple from the year before, so I knew that I wanted to run that race anyway. I just wanted to get to the starting line. I didn't care how fit I was or anything. And then I had a couple months of running under me, and then I had bursitis in between my metatarsals, and the beginnings of a stress reaction in my fourth metatarsal going into US champs. I think we were 6 weeks away at that point, and I had raced once and done a 1500. So going into that race, I would only do workouts on the ground, but then every other run would be on the boost, actually. And, I was so stubborn. I was going to this line no matter what.
Broken or not.
And I definitely had a broken foot. And I went, and it actually, I didn't make the final, but I raced, and the time wasn't good, but I just wanted to be there, Yeah. But immediately after that race, there was so much built up into this race. I feel like I had a pretty rough come down, and then just took, a couple months off completely to heal. And as much as that sounds super glamorized, I think that looking back just kind of destroyed me mentally, and I think it took a lot longer for me to come back mentally and physically from just that whole year of being so up and down and just not anywhere where I wanted to be.
And then what was 2020 like?
Oh geez, yeah. And then so I had a great fall of training, and then indoor I was back to my form, running my times I was in college and stuff, and the pandemic hit. So again, and this was for everybody, but it kind of felt like another injury, for everybody, it was just taken away. Yeah. Luckily, I was still able to run, so we kind of just pulled everything back and did a lot more base work, and we did race a little within our team, but it didn't go super well. And I was actually able to get in a steeple at the end of the summer down in South Carolina. I think there was 4 women in it, or 5, and it was the only steeple run the entire year. So technically I was the fastest steeple chaser in 2020, technically. Yeah, that's my big thing. No, no, but I hadn't jumped a hurdle in 6 months. It just popped up out of nowhere, and I was like, oh, I'll run it. And so that was a nice, that was my first steeple back since that last steeple where my foot was, broken. So it was nice to kind of just the time wasn't anything crazy, but it was definitely better than what it was the year before. But yeah, then that was just super rough, just trying to train and the uncertainty. But yeah, I think everyone was kind of feeling that.
So y'all made it through.
Yeah, we're here.
Fortunately, we're here in Boulder, Colorado.
Yeah.
And you just raced in the trials.
Yeah.
Talk about that experience.
Yeah, that was awesome. That stadium is absolutely gorgeous. And I could tell, obviously it's amazing from pictures and videos I was seeing, and they look great, on camera, but in person it's just absolutely crazy. It doesn't even feel real, especially since I, ran NCs there in college, and so it's just so different now. But that was a crazy experience. I definitely did not have the performance that I thought I could have, but my family was there, and it was just a great week to be with my family and experience that for the first time.
What were you thinking about on that start line?
the only thing I remember was walking into the stadium and thinking like,
Blacked out.
yeah, I was like, don't look up. Like, I'm just like, don't look around because I'm like, this is kind of freaky.
Yeah.
Mainly because, the last year or so, like, we haven't had any fans. So it was almost like too much of a stimulus because you're like, whoa, there's actually people here and people are supposed to be here because, it's been pretty quiet in the races leading up to this. So it was definitely a big stimulus for sure. I definitely wasn't used to it. It was awesome to have people there, but I think it was definitely a little like overstimulating for me.
What was it like racing and being in a race environment with no spectators?
It was definitely hard at first. I kind of think I got used to it.
Did it feel like a workout?
Yeah, totally. It felt like in high school when you show up those dual meets and you're gonna run like 5 events in 2 hours and you're just like on the track, like there's just no one there.
How did you get psyched up for it?
I don't think I did. I think that was kind of part of the problem. Like it's hard to kind of get in that zone of like, this is a big deal. Like I felt like I started every race it was just super raw. Like you're not numb. Like you're just like, oh, I feel everything from the gun. So yeah, it made racing challenging, at least for me. Yeah, it was hard to get myself excited.
Did you work with your sports psychologist on that?
Yeah, a little bit. I'm trying to think of certain things, we talked about. We talked about more of like now the overstimulation of having people. Like I think one of my feedback things about the trials was like, I think it was like too much. Like, and he said that, people had been saying that. Yeah, I don't know if we talked so much. There's probably other things we were talking about at that time, but now we're actually more so talking about how it is now, like coming out of the pandemic.
So what's the goal for 2021?
Yeah, going back to the U.S. Championships and making the final and seeing, what happens. The steeple is becoming it was already an awesome event, but it's becoming super deep now, and that's really exciting. What'd you say?
Fun intended.
Oh, yeah, right. Yeah. But I'm just excited where the event's going, and I just hope to be like up there and a part of it. So.
Do you know the origin of that race?
Just with like the horses?
I don't know.
Oh, yeah, I should probably know that. Not really. I think it had to do with like horses and.
I think they were talking about it on the broadcast, and I was like, wow, that's cool, but I completely forgot what it was.
Yeah, I guess I'm not good at the history of that, I guess. I just know it's like pretty new for women.
Yes.
But.
So, 2021 goal is to continue racing and race well. What's the 3 to 5 year plan?
Oof. I would definitely, my 3-year goal is to make it through the next Olympic cycle for sure. Past that, I think, I won't lie, it scares me a little to think that far down the line. But right now in my head, it's just kind of like the next 3 years. In 5 years, I don't, it kind of depends, but whether I'd want to keep running or kind of move on. But I'm kind of trying to figure that out of, like what's next. I do like online coaching, which I've been loving. So I feel like that's definitely something I'd love to get into. But as of now, I'm primarily focused on just seeing how good I can be at running.
Would you consider yourself internally motivated or externally motivated?
That's a tough one.
Where does the drive come from?
That's really tough because externally sounds a little shallow, but I think externally in just terms of like doing it for like family or like, like things like that, or my coaches or my team or things like that. But I think internally it definitely, I would have to say probably more so internally. I'm probably the hardest on myself. And so I just have this like strong desire to like work really hard at this thing because I know I can be good at it or even better at it. And that's obviously why it's so heartbreaking when it doesn't go the way, you want it to. But yeah, I guess more internally focused.
What are you thinking about when things get hard? Like today, when your workout didn't go the way you wanted it to?
If I'm being honest, I can be like kind of dramatic. Like I pretend like I'm quitting the sport entirely, Like after a bad race, I call my mom and I'm like, okay, I'm done. She's like, okay, I'll talk to you tomorrow. Like we'll talk about this. No, but there's hard mental days, there's hard physical days. Example for today, when you're just not on. I think, especially this time of year too, it's like, it's hot. Yeah, it's hot. You like don't know if you even want to keep racing. Like when should you take a break? Like I'm really looking forward to a break. And you're just like whatever. Luckily I have a coach that can tell when it's not going well, and they can switch it up or they call it and it's fine. But I think for me, I just kind of look within and like take it one rep at a time. And, there's a reason I'm out there, good or bad. And it's all going towards the one common goal of trying to be the best I can be. And I'm committed to that goal, whether it's a good or bad day. So I think that's kind of what I tend to remind myself after I have a little bit of a tantrum.
Thanks again to SuperCoffee for supporting this episode. I have been loving their French vanilla and hazelnut flavors and the cold brew cans. SuperCoffee combines the caffeine from 2 cups of coffee with protein and healthy fats to give you hours of focused energy with no jitters or crash. I love it as a strong start to the day. Receive 15% off of your purchase at drinksupercoffee.com/FTLR or use the code FTLR at checkout. I recommend trying one of their variety packs or bundles. If you give it a try, let me know what you think. Thanks again to Beam for sponsoring this episode of the podcast. As the days start to warm up and get longer, a cool-down routine in the evening becomes even more important. Did you know that you can get a subscription to Beam's Dream Powder? It's what I use most nights before bed to help with a refreshing night's sleep. When you subscribe, you'll get the Dream Blend with a bunch of perks like even better pricing, free shipping, a free mug, and a drink frother just for signing up. Dream helps me wind down at night, and it's made with compounds like melatonin and magnesium that support a better night's sleep. Make sure to use the code FTLR at checkout for an extra 15% off the already discounted 20% off monthly rate. And now back to our conversation. What does success mean to you? We're getting some hard-hitting questions.
I know, this is like, oh my gosh, did not expect this.
I'm never going to do a podcast again. This workout seems easy.
Yeah, I know, right? Put me back on the track.
Give me some forearm.
Yeah. Wow, that's it's pretty broad too. I feel like success means to me just being, my head's kind of going towards like just being the best human I can be, whether it's to people or my family or my friends or in my circle. I think it's pretty obvious, like with running, like success is like, what would I consider successful in running is just showing up every day and giving it all that I have.
But that part's not obvious because some people would say something totally different.
Okay.
So I think that like that is a unique.
Okay, maybe it is.
That is unique.
I just think that maybe people would say that. But yeah, I think it's just, I used to be very like the goal oriented, not really enjoying the process. And I think, that was causing, some of the stress of like the injury and all that. So I think success isn't just making a team or running this certain time. Of course there's goals, but once I'm done with this at this level, I think I'd be really happy if I just knew that I gave it everything I had, like mentally and physically, but also along the way was like a good human to those around me.
That part's important.
Yes.
Every time I ask this question to professional athletes, it's so fascinating that they don't answer with something tangible. And I think of like my 2014 through 2019, where success to me was running a sub-3 marathon. And that was the only barometer of success.
Yeah.
And I'm like embarrassed for that. And somebody asked me the other day, what are you training for? And I was at the track and I was exhausted, like on my 5th of 12 reps.
Right.
And I answered life. Because like I couldn't like muster anything else.
Life.
And then someone caught up to me on my recovery lap. She's like, did you seriously just say life? That's fucking awesome.
I actually love that.
That's what I'm doing too.
Yeah.
And I was like, well, like I was a little tired, but
right.
I'm like training for this marathon, but like I just want to have fun.
Yeah.
Like, see how good I can get.
Yeah.
And if like 2015 me had heard me say that, I'd be like, dude.
Yeah.
Are you kidding me?
You're kidding.
You're running that 259, and that's
right.
what you're training for.
Right, get serious.
Yeah, get serious. Like, stop having fun.
Right.
And I've said this on the podcast over and over again, but for me, that objective measure of success didn't happen until I could stand on that start line and like not give a shit about the outcome. And it was so powerful to be standing there and just like be so happy to like be there.
Yeah.
And 2 years of consistency, and then like what's gonna happen next?
Yeah. Did you break through your hours?
Yeah.
Okay, good.
About 20 seconds.
There you go, crushed it.
But like, what would have happened if I ran 21 seconds slower?
Right. Well, I think that's what's scary, right? Like, I think as I get older, it's like, I think if you have this one goal, I think the letdown, or even if you do hit the goal, it's like, how do you feel after?
And what happens next?
Yeah, is it kind of actually sad because you maybe weren't enjoying it enough, or you weren't nice to people, or you weren't, it's like, what's going to happen, especially if you don't hit it. I think not giving a shit is like probably the best way.
Yeah. So I've told this story about that race in 2019 maybe like 10 or 15 times on this podcast. So I guess I need to run another marathon to like get some new fodder.
Right, exactly. Have some new stories.
But again, it's like being a good person and running well, and like as we were talking about, like we're so much more than just runners. Like it's your job, but it's what you do for a couple hours a day.
Right.
How do you fill the rest of the time, and like who do you fill it with, and how do they feel, and all that stuff.
Yeah. Are you actually asking me that?
No.
Sorry. Okay, yeah. No, I totally agree. I mean,
answer you want.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. I feel like it is something I'm thinking about all the time. So I think emotionally I'm exhausted, probably more than even physically. But yeah, I agree. It's like, how are you filling your time? I mean, admittedly, I'm not the best at keeping up with people. I just kind of go in my little hole and I start training hard, and it's really hard if they're not right in front of me to like keep up with people, but I'm trying to work on that. But yeah, I think being a good person is probably more important than being like a really good runner.
Definitely, because you can be a shitty runner. I mean,
a good runner and a shitty person?
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't like those people. No.
I don't know. I feel like so much of like my definition of success has definitely evolved, and the process versus outcome trajectory has also evolved. How did that happen for you? And how did you, like, how would Tori of 5 years ago felt about your trials performance? First, how did Tori of 2021 feel about the trials?
Pretty devastated. I think I'm still getting over it. I'm not gonna lie. I think I'm still work in progress of like trying to figure out the balance of like, not taking myself too seriously, but also taking it seriously enough so I still have that edge of like fire. You know what I mean?
You should get picky on a bus.
Yeah, right. Exactly. Get yelled at maybe. I literally don't care.
Shut up.
Right. Because at the end of the day, you're right. It is just running. Like it's not that serious, but it feels like my world, right?
But it is your world. And it's like it's what you make of it.
Right.
Like, so the weekend of the trials, I was in California for Western States, and here are these people who chose to wake up at sometime in the threes, show up to the start line of a race at 5 a.m., run 4 miles straight uphill to 8,500 feet, and then progress another 96 miles downhill in 110-degree heat. There's no prize money.
I love those people though, and just for the love of it.
Yeah, there's no prize money, and their friends and family spent 30 hours tending to them, making sure their toes didn't fall off because they were wet, and making sure they didn't puke too much.
Right.
And they're just out doing it, and they're doing it for the love of the sport.
Yeah.
You know, there's so much. I don't know where I was going with this. It's a good segment.
Well, I will say, like, when I saw that on your Instagram story, I was like super sad about my performance. But I saw that, and you looked like you're having so much fun, first of all. And I remember DMing you being like, are people actually, are you saying 100 miles? Like, what are you talking about?
100 meters.
Or 100, yeah. I was like, what? And actually, I'm not gonna lie, not even kidding, that actually put in perspective for me. Like, I was like, oh my God, you're upset about this, like, 10-minute race, you're getting annoyed at people saying good job, and like, and then there's these people like just for the love of it running for like hours on end, which like I can't even comprehend. I remember like talking to you about it and actually laughing. Like, I was like, oh my God, like why are you taking this so seriously? That actually helped me. So I will say.
But it's all about the perspective.
Right.
Like I watched a dude vomit like a lot and then run another 40 miles.
Please tell me he was smiling like the whole time. I love that.
So where I was going with this is it's the meaning that you add to whatever context you're in. So
right.
I want to run that race one day to see if I can. I don't know that I can, and I want to do it to see like what happens when I want to stop. And I guess I could do that in a marathon or something shorter, but I think that anybody can run a marathon. I don't think that anyone can race a marathon. I don't think that anyone can race what you're racing at 800, 1500 steeple. Like, to excel and push as hard as that, that takes not just physical training, but mental training. I don't think that that's possible for everyone to do.
Totally agree.
No matter the distance.
Yeah, totally agree.
And so, like, that's what I want to explore. And the thing I love so much about running is that what you learn on the track, on the road, on the trails, whatever, it applies everywhere.
Yeah.
So if I can do this, it's like, what else can I do that I think might actually
What can I not do?
What can I not do?
Yeah,
That bucket
totally.
shrinks significantly.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, because I think that's so true, because I feel like there's been times where running's helped my mental health, or like my mental health's helped my running, and it's like, yeah, there's life lessons within this sport for sure, and I think that's kind of what's been helping my growth as well.
Totally.
But, yeah.
So is mental health something you specifically have focused on?
Yeah, that's been a huge thing for me, at least. I think every coach I've had said this, but I think I get in my own way, and I think that's something we've just been, trying to work on. But yeah, that's been a huge thing within my training.
And how is it something you've been working on?
Just, a few hours a week with my sports psych. But I do think it's important to find somebody that, you vibe with. I used to be like, oh, therapy doesn't work for me. But I think it's finding someone that works with you well. And then once you find that person, like, you're with that person for a while. Yeah. I'm like, you're stuck with me. And so I think that's just been a huge help, and he's been amazing and really helped me with, even just game plans for racing, and whatever my coach says, I bring it back to him, and we try to like put that into the mental side of things. So yeah, it's like my physical coach, my mental coach, and then trying to put it together.
And then go.
Yeah.
What's been the most surprising takeaway from that work?
Yeah, just how strong I realize I am, and like what
does that mean?
what I've overcome. It's a hard question.
Somebody told me to ask harder questions.
Oh, really? Am I the first person? Okay, no, I'm just kidding.
Peter Bronca and I were talking about this a few months back, and he was like, press, like, ask harder questions. Because like, how often do we get to have like a conversation that's like deep and
for sure,
and just not like, oh, the weather is hot out.
I ran 10 miles today.
Right.
Yeah.
Cool. No one cares.
No one cares.
This is the stuff
Literally
that
no one
people
cares.
care about.
Right, that's true. I might not be like as quick with it. No, but sorry, what was your question?
The question was, you feel strong.
Yeah.
What does that mean?
I feel like I've just, been through a lot mentally, and I've overcome a lot of things, and I think it's kind of like what you were talking about, of like pushing yourself in that specific race to kind of see where your limits are, and then if you even have any, and like what can you not overcome. I actually feel like I relate to that a lot, just in terms of my life, and there's highs and lows. You're not always going to feel amazing, you're not always going to feel bad, and I think I've really just learned to like ride those waves. And so I just feel strong. I'm still trying to put that together in racing, but and those anxieties, but I think in my regular life I've learned to kind of quiet those things, and I've had a lot of help there.
When you're stronger mentally and you're accepting of the waves that you're riding, Megan said it yesterday, this too shall pass.
Yeah.
When you're in that moment and you're strong mentally, do you notice a carryover to your running?
Oh, 100%. When I'm on, and I think I notice, like, I think I'm physically talented enough and I work hard enough, but I think the piece that was missing for me was the mental piece. And so I think when it all comes together, it's like, it's awesome. But yeah, with like, I was talking to my mom about it today of like, I'm kind of in a lull right now. It's like post trials, and you're just kind of like, what am I doing? And but I'm just going through this right now. You got to keep going, and you ride this, and eventually I'll be on to my next thing, and you just keep going.
What did she say?
He's like, yep, that's that's pretty much how it goes.
Get it out there.
Yeah, but like old Tori would have been a mess, and like calling her crying, and like, she used to fly out here, and like, whatever. But now I feel like I just recognize that that's just life, and it doesn't need to be perfect. Things don't need to be perfect in the moment to have a good outcome.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
Talk to me about how that will push you forward, and like how you will take what you learned in the trials in 2021 and apply that, so that, like, the way I like to think of mental training is things are hard, you get over them, and then things are less hard, and then you get over them.
And there's like this one level where you're like, whoa, never been there
the
before. Yeah, exactly.
No, but it's the same thing with physical training, right? It's like stress, rest, repeat. Stress, rest, repeat, grow. So how are you taking all that and pushing yourself forward? I
just see every day as like, hey, we bottle that day up, and like, you put it in the back.
But is that an act? Like,
I know that's such a vague thing, because I listen to podcasts and hear people say things. I'm like, but like, what are you doing? Because I'm trying to think of like an actual.
Yourself, so what are you doing?
I know, like, I think it's like just a lot of like mental note. I feel like I'm always aware of my thoughts, and like I journal and I write things down, or like what I want to take away from the day. or I speak to I'm speaking to my therapist after this, but it's a lot of like I speak to him once a week, especially during the season. So it's a lot of checking in with him, and then like he'll maybe give me homework, or I write notes down, or he has a video of me to watch, and then I just kind of reflect on our conversation or what happened during the day.
Cool. Is gratitude something that you practice intentionally?
I would like to think I try to do that. I think it's hard
yes
though.
No.
Like, I know. I guess no. I definitely feel gratitude, right? I definitely struggle though the day to day of like, sometimes I'm just like, I feel bleh. I'm just like, it's not sunshine and rainbows. I'm just like, bleh. That's how I kind of.
But I think sometimes it's like accepting that, like, if it's always sunshine and rainbows, like you're either on drugs or like
that's
you're
not how it works. Like
you're like a different breed.
I think Jenny Simpson said this. Like, you are not normal if you want to actually go for a run every day. Like, and I like totally feel that because like it kind of seems on social media like everyone's just like loving training and it's the easiest thing ever. And I'm like, I'm having a hard time. Like, why is no one else having a hard time?
But I guess the gift and the curse of social media that like some people only post the positives. And then you have teams of athletes that like they're encouraged to post the lows.
Right.
And like Natalie,
I love that.
A handful of them do that. How do you consciously or I guess unconsciously use your own social media? Yeah,
no, I definitely try to be as transparent as possible.
Definitely comes off that way.
Does it? Okay, good. Thanks. I don't post as much as I wish I did, but I actually almost posted something today where it's like it's funny because I have this picture of myself that I want to post, but I have nothing to say that's not positive.
Well, then just do a caption this.
Right, I'm going to be like, you know what, I'm actually just going to say things that don't make sense in this photo.
Sign tweets for winner of caption.
Right. I just want to post this photo to say I posted. No, but I think that's so hard with social media. So I feel like I try to be transparent.
So you don't have anything positive to post about yourself or like an encouraging like... Yeah,
like so, because this photo is like me in a normal outfit. Yeah. And I'm like, I'm not gonna like pretend I feel good today and post this photo. But I also, so I have this caption written that's all like, life sucks sometimes, like whatever.
But that's the kind of stuff that people need to see.
I know, and so I try to do that because it does bother me when it's like everything's fine because things aren't fine. Yeah, so that was actually something that I've been going back and forth in my head of like, I haven't posted since the trials and I'm like, I don't know what to say.
So you've been
not that people really care that I'm... Yeah, right. Not that people are like really listening to what I'm saying on there, but I try to at least be like, even if there's one person that I'm helping or a young girl, because like I didn't have an iPhone in high school. I didn't have my Instagram until college or any of that. And so I don't even know how I would have reacted as a 16-year-old nowadays on social media.
Terrible.
It's terrible, yeah. I can barely do it as a 27-year-old. So I just try to be, super transparent, like post the bad and the good. I think all of 2019, it was just all my bad stuff. People are probably over it by then, but...
And then you got 2020?
Yeah, and they're like, oh, geez, like, please, this girl.
I had another person on the podcast, Tansy Lystad, who also had a pretty not great 2019. She talked about it on this podcast. And she's like, and then 2020 happened.
Nothing to say, yeah. I know, like, trying to get in these races, and people are like, so, like, where are your times from? Like... You're not going to care because it was from like 2018. Like, not the best last couple years, but I think this year we're on the up. On the up, I think.
Riding the wave up.
Yeah, the trials didn't go well, but it was definitely a good season. Yeah. So we're just going to keep doing that. So
cool. So we're here in Boulder. You've been here for a few months.
Yeah.
What's been your favorite part about being here?
Probably.
Besides obviously this podcast.
Yeah. Okay. Obviously this podcast, but I would just say like meeting people that I've seen, it's like who I've competed with in college or like running pro from afar, and now I actually like run with them or I like get dinner with them, or it's just like the people here. I think the people here are amazing, and it's just like such this like little community, and it's like the greatest place to live. So
agreed.
Yeah.
Been here for 3 weeks.
Right. Been here 3 months, like hard Colorado person.
So I was also talking about this with Tansy again.
Yeah.
A lot of deep conversations. Anyway.
Yeah.
We were talking about the type of person that's in Colorado, specifically Boulder, and I'm wondering if you found this as well. And by the way, I pitched the Colorado Board of Tourism sponsoring this podcast because I speak so highly of Boulder and Colorado.
They have to get involved.
They haven't gotten back to me yet, so
okay.
If anybody out there is listening.
Yeah.
Anyway, what we were talking about was the type of person that comes here usually comes here because they're betting on themselves. And they believe in themselves enough to take a risk. So talk to me about how that experience was for you and moving from the East Coast to out here where you didn't know a whole lot of people.
Yeah, like nobody. Yeah, so I decided to leave Reebok and switch coaches in January. Just like 6 months of the trials, like couldn't really come to like a mutual agreement with Reebok and was like, you know what? I'm someone that like thrives when they're just thrown in the deep end, like figure it out. And I felt like that was a great setup there. And I loved my time there. I love the coach. I love the team. I just think like I was a little too comfortable, and I had always seen myself training out here and wanted to give it a go. And so I just kind of was like, I had this opportunity to come out here and just like moved across the country in the middle of the pandemic, like 6 months before the trials, never been to altitude before, ever, and was like, I'll just live here full time, and just kind of figured it out as I went. And luckily, you know, my boyfriend moved us across the country, so I kind of just like showed up here. So that was really helpful, and our parents helped us like move and unpack, and so like couldn't have done that without any of them. But yeah, that kind of sounds a little crazy, but that's just like me. I feel like I could move anywhere and I'll just like make it work. And I don't know, I just felt like I needed to be here. And so, yeah, just follow my dreams and like take a chance on myself. And I had a lot of support doing that. So
cool.
That's helpful.
What was your first run at altitude like?
So I actually had been in Phoenix training for like 6 or 7 weeks. And so it was just like, it was January and February. So before I came here.
Okay to be
I was like, oh my God, it's sea level. Degrees, it's actually like negative sea level. It's like, or no, I'm sorry. It's like 1,000 feet. So technically sea level for me. But no, it was like beautiful weather. Like I was just running with people. It was like the greatest time. I had been told by people like what to expect when I got here. And I don't really remember my first run, but I remember my first workout. And it was at Davis and Mesa. I did some tempo stuff. And I was like, this is hard from start to finish. Like, this is just a whole different thing. Luckily, I think I responded really well to altitude, and I don't even really notice anymore, but it just feels hard. Like, I don't know. I don't notice. But yeah, running's hard. Running's really hard. But yeah, now I don't really notice. But definitely coming here, I think I also expected it to be a lot worse than it was. So I think that helped.
Go higher.
Right, I know. I'm like, I don't think I'm high enough. But, because everyone tells me, it's only 5,000 feet. I'm like, but I have never done this.
5,000 feet higher.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would joke that the highest point in my running on the East Coast was my 4th floor apartment.
Literally. Like, when I was living in Virginia, I think it was like negative 30. Yeah, it was like, I mean, it is really humid there, and the summers are pretty brutal, so we kind of... So
I think humidity is worse.
100%.
My coach says it's not.
Like, oh, I know what I feel.
But so I went from Boston to Breckenridge.
Oh no!
I didn't look at the altitude.
It's like 12,000 feet.
What? 9,600.
Okay. No. Okay.
So like 3 weeks before going, I was like, I should probably like check to see, you know, is it in the 8s? Because I thought it was like 8,200 feet. I've been to Vail, which is close enough to, you know, ignore this point. And so my first run, I ran 8 miles. And I walked like a lot.
Right.
I ran like a 9:45 pace.
Oh no.
And like easy running in Boston for me is like 7:30 ish.
Like not trying.
And and this is like more than 2 minutes slower. I'm like, I'm here for 2 months.
Yeah.
So I took a different approach to coming to Boulder, which was to go super high and then come down.
So how do you feel now?
Fantastic.
Yeah, it's like sea level.
So I was there for 2 months. I came to Boulder for a month, and I went back to the East Coast for 8 weeks. But when I was in Breck to Boulder, I came to Boulder, I felt like I was running in Springs. Like, this is cheating. This is cheating. I came down 4,000 feet. And then my coach was like, wait till you get back to Boston. Oh, no. And my first run in Boston was like 6:30 pace on trails.
That's amazing.
Like,
I am the best runner.
I was like, I don't have the ankle stability to run this fast.
My body can't actually handle this.
My body cannot handle this. My lungs are good, but not good.
I didn't even think about that. Yeah.
What's been the most surprising thing for you about Boulder?
I'm kind of a fake Boulder resident. I technically live in Superior.
Okay,
I think people
County.
Here would like not like that I said I live in Boulder. Like outside of Boulder. No, it's like a mile away. But
you can run into Boulder.
Yeah, exactly. I run in Boulder, it's fine. I'm not gonna lie, it's probably what I expected. It's like a little like mountain town. I feel like there's so much to do. People are so active here. Yeah. Cool. I'm not really sure if I have like a surprising thing. It's pretty much what you expect.
So here's a different question. Okay. So a couple years ago I had like, 10 Boulder athletes on the podcast in the summer of 2019. And many of them brought up the comparison game. and
Okay.
like talking about Boulder Average being like having a shoe sponsor. And Matt Daniels, who's a professional trail runner who's run sub 4 in the mile, was like, nobody cares that I've run sub 4. Like everybody's run sub 4.
Yeah. Yeah.
He's like, you go to Whole Foods and you see 5 Olympians who
Right.
are just like buying grass-fed beef.
I was gonna say like buying apples. Like
Yeah,
yeah, exactly.
So have you fallen into this comparison? Is it something that you've thought about, or we just
Of just seeing people out and about, or what do you mean?
like,
Yeah.
Do you feel any of that?
For sure. I mean, I'm not like in Boulder like
Yeah.
enough, right? Because I don't live in Boulder. No, but I feel like
Established.
yeah, no, but I feel like, and I'm trying to think, like definitely like
Like I went to a track the other day.
well, yeah, I was gonna say, does that count like at the track?
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
at the track, it's like, and then there's people from out of town we're
Right.
in. And I'm like, oh, like so and so's here. Like I didn't know they're at a camp, or like college kids will come in for camp, or like I guess that's one thing that's surprising. I didn't realize. I guess like obviously,
Destination.
yeah, like obviously I know like people come here to run,
Right.
but it really is like one of the destinations
Yeah.
for people to come out here. And there's at the track, there's from 8 to 10. There's just people rolling in at different times doing different
Yeah.
stuff, and it just feels so normal.
I went to the track last week, and it was like the first time in years. I normally do like fartlek style workouts on the road, and I was running 12 by 1 minute fast, and I got my doors blown off running like 5:15 pace.
Right. Or
By somebody running like significantly
right,
further.
and they're probably in high school. Like the high school team's like super legit here too. I mean,
It
that's
was in middle school, so
oh,
it was
dude,
no, he was a
worse.
professional runner.
Okay, good. No, but actually, that's something I'll say. Like when I am running on like trails or roads, like it's like I'm passing people. But now there's like been some times where like I'm getting rolled up on, and you're like, wait a second, like hold on, like a lot. Yeah, I know. Like wait, what? I remember in Boston like getting into like battles with people, but like here I'll just get like totally rolled up on. Yeah, so it's definitely a different. It's like a high, like the community's like a higher
funny,
level.
right?
Yeah, the whole community's like a high level of running.
And it's like no matter how good you are, there's always somebody that's better.
100%.
I biked to Lyons a couple weeks ago. It's like 50 miles round trip.
Yeah.
And so I get to like a cafe and I order lunch, and I'm obviously like out for a bike ride.
Yeah.
And the dude's like, oh, like you starting or ending? I'm like, oh, I'm halfway through, coming from Boulder, so I'm like 25 miles in. It's like halfway through at 25. Come on,
He's
dude.
like, shh.
He was like, just yesterday, a woman rode from Denver. She was 80 miles halfway through, and she
Oh my
just
God.
continued on to Estes.
Maybe that's why everyone's so good, because they just keep like one up in each other. Like, the
Yeah.
standard is like very high
It's-
here.
Yeah, so I think it's. I mean, you can get caught up in that.
Oh
but
yeah, definitely.
I like to think of it as like the woman coming from Denver, riding 80 miles, and then going further, and then turning around.
Yeah.
Like, I'm single. I have a work from home job, and like I have a lot of time.
Yeah.
And there are people doing like way more with
Less time.
less.
Yeah.
And so I'm like, that's fucking motivating.
Yeah, right? I know. I'm
I'm
gonna get another job. yeah.
Yeah.
No, I know.
And then you just like put yourself in a hole.
Right, and then you're sad. Yeah, exactly.
And then it's a wave, and then you come back up.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it all
So-
comes back.
Could talk about Boulder for hours,
Right.
but I think my last question is going to be if people want to find you on social media and find this post of you in
I'll
non-running
post later.
clothes, that is going to be a caption contest.
Yeah.
Where can they find you?
On Instagram, I'm Tori Gerlach, and that's like my main thing that I use. I feel like I only use Instagram.
Awesome.
Not big on anything else. So.
Well, thanks for
Yeah.
taking the time to chat.
Yeah, thanks so much. This is fun.
That's it for today's episode. Like many long runs, it's sad when it has to end. I hope you join in next time on For the Long Run, and in the meantime, happy trails. If you enjoyed this episode, it would mean a lot to me if you shared it so that others can find it and enjoy it too. This podcast and the accompanying music has been produced by Brian Walters of Single Track Sound. For the Long Run's logo was created by Vanessa Wolf of Sterling Wolf.